By the 1950s, two Western countries already have nuclear weapons, the United States and the United Kingdom. But France looks at both of them and decides it needs a bomb that belongs to France alone. This episode is the story of how France went from devastated after World War II to building a completely independent nuclear force, its force de frappe, designed not to rely on the United States, Britain, or anyone else. We'll see how Charles de Gaulle's vision of French independence shaped nuclear policy, how early research at the Commissariat à l'énergie atomique laid the groundwork, and how France tested its first bomb in the Sahara Desert before moving to the Pacific. By the end, you'll see why France insisted on a nuclear voice of its own, even while sitting inside NATO, and how that decision changed the nuclear map of Europe. After World War II, France is heavily damaged. Cities are wrecked, industry is weakened, and political instability makes the country feel vulnerable. The memory of being invaded and occupied is still painfully fresh. At the same time, France sees that nuclear weapons have become central to global power. The United States, the Soviet Union, and soon the United Kingdom can now threaten or protect using nuclear arsenals. France does not want its fate decided entirely in Washington or Moscow. Very early on, France creates the Commissariat à l'énergie atomique, or CEA, to handle nuclear research. At first, the focus is partly civilian, reactors, energy, but the possibility of nuclear weapons is never far from the conversation. The key figure behind France's eventual nuclear policy is Charles de Gaulle. He believes that France must be truly independent, even from friendly powers. That means French decisions should not depend entirely on American or British nuclear choices. De Gaulle's thinking is simple but radical. If France's survival depends on someone else's nuclear weapons, then France is not truly sovereign. An independent country, in his mind, needs an independent nuclear deterrent. In the 1950s, France begins to move from nuclear research to actual weapons planning. The CEA and the French military start working together to figure out how to produce fissile material, design warheads, and eventually deliver them by aircraft and missiles. Like other nuclear powers, France faces basic technical challenges: building reactors, separating materials like plutonium, and designing bombs that will work on the first try. But France also faces a unique political challenge, doing all of this while still officially part of Western alliances. France is part of NATO, which relies heavily on American nuclear weapons for deterrence. But de Gaulle does not want French security to be tied only to decisions in Washington. The idea of a force de frappe, a French striking force, is born as a way to keep control at home. To build this force, France invests in reactors and fuel production. It develops plutonium routes and later moves toward more advanced ideas. But the first goal is clear: a working fission bomb that can show France has entered the nuclear age. France chooses the Sahara Desert, then part of French colonial territory, as the site of its first nuclear test. The area is remote, sparsely populated, and far from metropolitan France, which makes it easier to conduct a secret, controlled experiment. On February 13, 1960, France conducts its first nuclear test, codenamed Gerboise Bleue. A bomb is detonated atop a tower in the Sahara, sending a mushroom cloud into the sky and officially placing France among the nuclear-armed states. With Gerboise Bleue, France becomes the fourth country with nuclear weapons, after the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom. This immediately changes how France sees its place in the world and how other countries see France. De Gaulle and French policymakers do not see the bomb as a simple copy of Anglo-American strategy. They develop the idea of a national force de frappe that must be able to act independently, even if that means sometimes disagreeing with allies. In practice, this means building delivery systems that France can control. First, nuclear-capable aircraft. Later, land-based missiles. Eventually, submarine-launched ballistic missiles that give France a second strike capability on its own. Politically, France's insistence on independence sometimes creates friction. De Gaulle famously withdraws France from NATO's integrated military command structure in 1966, even though France stays in the alliance itself. Nuclear independence is part of that broader stance. For de Gaulle, the logic is consistent. Alliances are useful, but France must never be in a position where its nuclear decisions are made somewhere else. The force de frappe is designed so that any potential attacker knows France itself can choose how to respond. The French arsenal is never as large as those of the United States or the Soviet Union, but it is designed to be big enough to impose unacceptable damage on any attacker, and flexible enough to target not just cities, but also military forces. France's nuclear tests move beyond the Sahara. In later years, tests are conducted in the Pacific at sites like Mururoa. These tests become controversial internationally, especially among countries worried about environmental and health impacts. Domestically, French public opinion about nuclear weapons is mixed. Some see the force de frappe as essential to independence and security. Others worry about cost, morality, and environmental damage from testing. At the strategic level, other NATO members have to factor France's independent arsenal into their planning. Any crisis involving Western Europe now includes not just American and British weapons, but French ones that might be used under French rules. From an adversary's perspective, this can be complicated. Any attack on Western Europe risks triggering not just an American response, but possibly a British and a French response as well, each with its own doctrine and thresholds. For France, this complexity is a feature, not a bug. It wants any potential aggressor to know that attacking France might not be handled purely through American calculations. France reserves the right to decide for itself how to respond. Over time, France modernizes its arsenal, moving toward more accurate missiles and submarine fleets. But the core principle remains the same: a national nuclear deterrent designed to guarantee France's security without depending solely on any other country. So how did France get the bomb? It rebuilt after occupation, created the CEA, followed de Gaulle's vision of independence, chose remote test sites in the Sahara and Pacific, and built a force de frappe, meant to speak with a uniquely French nuclear voice. The result is a smaller but truly independent nuclear force that complicates the calculations of any adversary and gives France its own voice in the most serious questions of war, peace, and deterrence. In our next episode, we move east to China. How did the People's Republic of China go from being pressured and threatened by foreign nuclear powers to testing its own bomb at Lop Nor? And why did it insist on developing a nuclear arsenal under its own doctrine?